Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today here. I'll be moderating this session. My name is Gyana, Swain, consulting editor at VARINDIA. This is a very crucial topic that we are going to be discussing. The DPDP-IT 2023. Well, last 1 year, we have been discussing this act since it came into effect. There's lots of jargons attached to this. Maybe lots of audience do not know in clear terms what it means or how the organizations, individuals can protect themselves. Maybe organizations are a little aware how to protect personal data because there is a catch there. They have to cough off, say, 50 to 250 crore if a single fine or mistake. But individuals may not be too aware about that. So I welcome all my esteemed panelists on this stage. And I'd like to take this liberty to ask the lady on the floor, practicing lawyer and advocate at Honorable Supreme Court of India, Khushbu Jain. Khushbu, I would like to request you to set the stage by explaining the DPDP Act in clear terms, in layman terms, so that everyone is aware, at least a step further.
Okay. So if I have to put it in a nutshell, DPDP, it's nothing but ideally what companies should have done it long back. The ethical norms which we have it in our thing, the basic things that if I take somebody's stuff, all I have to do is make them aware about it, make sure that for what I'm taking it, make sure that if there is a misuse of that thing, I make them aware about it. These were the basic ethical things which have to be kept in mind, but this was not kept in mind, looking at how data infiltrated in the entire ecosystem with we going towards digital India, and countries across globe realize the same. So government took a stand that data plays a very important role for a lot of things. It can be security, it can be personal security, it can be the way crimes are going and how to curb the crime, plus misuse of privacy of an individual. So for all that part, what they did is they're creating a law which talks about the DPDP Act. DPDP Act talks nothing. It talks about that these are the basic rights which an individual has over its data, which is an extension of right to privacy, if I have to put it. Now, right to privacy is that it's my fundamental right. My data, take my consent. That's a first principle in your DPDP Act. Now, consent cannot be the consent which is drafted by lawyers, which even lawyers don't understand. It has to be a very clear consent. Consent should make part of who you are, what you do, what data are you taking of mine, for what purposes are you utilizing that data, which all entities are you sharing the data, and for what purposes are you sharing the data with, what security measures, mention over there. Now, what rights I have in place, those 9 principles, right to have an access. I should know, right, that what data of mine is with you. Second right, the right when it comes to, I need to have exercise of right to be forgotten. I don't want my data to continue, be wherever places. So that's my another fundamental right. Another part of my fundamental right. The other one would be that I want to nominate somebody. I want to port my data. I want to delete the data. I want to have an access, so on and so forth. With all these things, I want to recall my consent. I have given my consent today that next 2 years you utilize my data, but now I feel like, no, I don't feel like giving consent. So I'm the data subject. The authority, the ownership should lie with me, provided companies get a clarity that if you're asking, give me this clarity and utilize my data for not 1, 2, 3, but maybe 1,000 purposes. Share my data with not 1, 2 third parties, but maybe millions of third parties, but make me aware of it. Now, when you bring all these things, they have said that in case there is a default of even 1, there are penalties up to 50 crores for just non-compliance of this. So tomorrow, let's say company A doesn't give me an option when it talks about explicit consent in 22 languages, there is a up to 50 crore penalty. I don't have an option of right to be forgotten, another up to 50 crore of a penalty. We are not talking about breach here, we are not talking about cyber incident. We are just talking about compliance. Going back, ideally what people should have done long back is what has been making sure that DPDP bring in. That's your first portion of it. So even companies understand that what are the mechanisms they have to keep in place. Now when I say company understand, so today company understands that, boss, I can take all these data for all these purposes. I keep my entire company clean when it comes to, entire data journey. And also make sure that the liabilities are transferred properly to the third parties, whoever is doing it, and that clarity is there. Now, the second portion of the law that talks about the DPDP is in case you have to keep reasonable security standard in place, in case there is a breach, then you will have to make sure that you inform and so on and so forth, and the penalties can go up to 200 to 250 crores. But those penalties will be decided on how fast you were in mitigating the risk, how vigilant were you in informing the data subjects about the breach that has happened, what kind of impact it can have it. Let's say, Air India ka statement coming up saying that so-and-so of data is gone. So tomorrow if I tell you that your Aadhaar card, this, your stay at Lee Meridian has been breached. Now, day after tomorrow, somebody calls you, sir, I'm calling from Lee Meridian, आपका कुछ सामान यहाँ पे रह गया है, मैं भिजवा रहा हूँ. So you will not be scared because you know that the data is breached, right? So you will not fall prey to that cyber crime. I'm giving you a very small example of it. The day after tomorrow, somebody calls you that there is some more offer because you stayed in Lee Meridian, we are offering you 2 more nights, and then gives you a link. So there can be enough and more crimes that can be committed, but if you're aware, it becomes fast. So that's what the board is going to look into, that how much penalty, the quantification of the penalty will be decided based on some parameters, and these are some parameters.
So Khushbu, that compels me to ask one additional question to that. What is the mechanism available for the customers or users like me or anyone else to know that their consent is violated?
The act has come up, it's enforceable, but rules are yet not come. So we are waiting for the rules to come. Now for you to know basic things about consent, as I said it, that it should be clear, it should tell you who they are, what they do, how many parties they share the data with, for what purposes they share the data, and they give you the number of the person who you can contact in case of any complaints that need to be registered. And it should be in 22 languages, which are part of your 8th schedule of your constitution. Now, if you don't find these basics, that's a basic thing. And wait for the rules to come. Trust me, there would be floodgate when it comes to these kind of complaints. And board will also take suo motu cognizance of these kind of things happening. We are seeing that in GDPR, European states, that how they take cognizance themselves. If you look into penalties imposed on Google, on Meta, when it comes to cookie infringements, those were suo motu complaints which were being taken up by the board itself and continued.
Absolutely. Now moving from the individuals to all panelists sitting here are from various organizations, and they do handle tons of data, individual data. So how has this the act has impacted the organizations from the CIO or CISO's perspective? I would like to ask Commodore Parhi on this, if you can take that and
Okay. So first of all, I thank VARINDIA for having given me an opportunity, having given Data Safeguard an opportunity to be here. To take your question, so I will go back and take you back to the GDPR. Actually, this is considered the gold standard of data privacy. Why it is so? Because a group of 27 nations decided enough is enough. Googles of the world cannot take my data and walk away, and then subsequently they will allow others to exploit this data for whatever reason, for financial gains, for other gains, and anything else, political gains, and shaping the opinion of a nation. So enough. So that's where 2018 May, I think they said this act, GDPR, is applicable to entire European Union, 27 nations. Actually, this the whole world sat up and started looking at, oh God, something is happening. And also India started looking this. In fact, 2017 it started, but by the time we reached here, it was 2023. I must say we are not late, but at the right time, because we have learned from the world that what is actually, what course of action we should take. It should not be so stringent that our basic businesses stifle. So that's why we have come out with a document which is almost similar to GDPR, but with all Indianized versions of, little bit of apathy, sympathy, and other things brought in here. So what I wanted to say is, since this document is only a 21-page, 9 chapters and 44 sections act, The rules are yet to be framed, but be aware, rules will come this year. That's what I could hear from some panelists here. But if the rules come and we are not ready, this is not a good situation. Because suddenly they'll say, this is the implementation date. And say October, November, December, what could be there? This could be anywhere here. Then are organizations ready? Are the departments ready? Those people who collect data in hordes, are they ready? So here comes the role of the CISOs and data privacy officers. So what they have to do is first, they have to look at data as an asset. What are they collecting from the individuals? What kind of classification they have done to this data? Have they carried out the, after classification, have they carried out this risk assessment? Because risk assessment will decide what is the critical asset, and accordingly he will do the risk mitigation. So what kind of risk mitigation has he done? Has he put a policy? Has data privacy policy been implemented or at least written down? I'm sure 90% of the organizations in this country would not have thought of privacy impact assessment. See, one is risk assessment, but towards data privacy, you have to carry out a data privacy assessment. What Khushbu madam told, that consent, this is the most critical factor for data privacy. We have a format for consent management? We have to again borrow it from GDPR or what? So those things will have to be laid down, and governance, risk and compliance has to be written down in so many ways, so many formats. So all these things have to be put in place. And to top it all, I mean, above all this lies that the data subject or the data owner has to know without any bias, without any threat, that what data he is required to give. In fact, in GDPR and in DPDP also, it's clearly mentioned that when a data subject or data owner gives data, he should not feel threatened that he has been asked, like it happens in our various systems, I will not name the organizations, that they will threaten, if you don't give this, then I will do whatever I can do. So those it should be free of threat, out of his own will, and he has the rights to delete, update, modify the data anytime he wants to. That liberty stays with him. So all this have to be codified. The CISOs and CDOs have to codify this into policies, do an assessment in their own organization, what kind of data is taken from the data subject. Is it necessary? You should take that much of amount of data that is required to be taken for running the organization. Because at the end of the day, again, she said, if there is a breach, then he will be asked, the organization will be asked this uncomfortable question, why did you collect this data? So today we came to know that 37 crores of Airtel customer data has been out in the net, dark net, being sold. So what do you do to this? Just imagine, had this act been operational from 11th August 2023, then what kind of fine they would have given? And then they would have also, now they can say, sir, the regulations are not out. So we'll see what we can do.
I think you are talking about those challenges now that CIS.
Yes, what I'm saying is these factors have to be taken into account when framing the policies. Basically training, framing the policy, absolutely. All these things have to be done in a
I'll go to Shashank on that, and also to Siva and Arvind. They're managing huge amount of data in their organizations. So what are the challenges you have started facing, post DPDP Act compared to, say, IT Act 2000 or 2011? So if you'd like to, elaborate on the challenges specifically for implementation of those acts.
See, there are many challenges we are facing since we are a financial company. So we are holding a large amount of data, which is more than a petabyte. And it is all customer data comprising of Aadhaar and KYC kind of thing, PAN card. So many things are there. So understanding the DPDP Act into the simple layman terms, it's most difficult because the in-house manpower is not adequate to translate the Act into the simple English terms. Second thing is, apart from DPDP, we have an international clientage also, so which we have to deal with the GDPR also. So GDPR and DPDP is a double-edged sword for us. Second thing is like there is a lack of budget is not applicable, not available that much of time. So budget was the constraint to implement those kind of things. Third thing is like since we have a large data of structured as well as the unstructured data was there. So what kind of data you want to regulate, that was not clear from the enterprise kind of things. Third is the, which is most important, like the third-party support was not adequate or handling by us. And the next is that since we are having a multiple application which is on-prem as well as on cloud also, so most of the applications was written 10 years, 15 years back. That was not supported by the new generation act, and so we are not able to cater those kind of things. But the new things which is coming, it is already implemented to the system itself. And the final is the third party support and trust is there. So antitrust is lacking, and then again the SEBI rules, RBI rules, compliances, so many things. Like hindrance are multiple hindrance. It's not easy.
Maybe because this is at the infant stage of implementation.
Yes.
Maybe 9-10 months.
Yeah, we are doing those things. This is already in pipeline, so we have already started those things.
Mr. Arvind, because you might be handling a lot of data of customers, you are into healthcare. So how do you see, what are the challenges you face in your organization?
See, challenges in any organization, it's not me or somebody's organization, but challenge is to identify the touch points where you are having PII data. Finding out where exactly it is lying, which department, which function, where, which application, how it is being handled. These are the challenges. So to identify and finding it out, it itself is a project for any of the organization, right? Where data lying, for how long it is lying. Is it in use or not in use, right? How to handle those kind of data. Do we need that data to continue, or do we need to discard it? What do we do with the data? These are the major challenges rather than we are just going for technological implementation and all. So if you able to find out the data where it is lying in your organization, irrespective of healthcare or any industry, right? Then you are able to control and mitigate all these stuff that is required for. Second challenge is the biggest one, as Khushbu has said in the beginning also, the consent, right? Initially, even if in the current organization, if you say somebody walks in, asks for the test, you just give the mobile number and you can do the test, right?
Absolutely.
Rest of the things is not there. Then what will happen to that particular mobile number? You have been taken, right? 5 years back, you are having different mobile number that is resides with you. As on date after that, that customer has not come up and not updated the data, but it is lying with you. What will you do with that? You can try to reach to the customer. You can send a SMS. Beyond that, what? If no response happen, then what will you do with that data? How you can use it, or you can't use that data? Because it might be possible that data, or you can say that mobile number is being associated to somebody else as of now, right? So these are the things that is required in clarity, as Khushbu said, that until unless we are not having the guidelines, we can just do the basic preparation from our end, how to trace the data, how to secure the data, the basic stuff, and how to classify the data, PIA data or critical data or official data, just like we are talking about in technology, what is our crown jewels, either it's an ERP or anything. Same way we need to identify and classify the data as well, and then ensure that it is secure with whatever way you can do.
Siva, would you like to add on that? Because a lot of customers come to you for your consulting and similar purposes. How do you see those challenges in your kind of organizations?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for this opportunity. So I work with a lot of global capability centers, right? So basically, this I divide into 3 categories. what kind of data we want to collect, still it is not very clear in that what is your personal data protections or not. And secondly, if you see large organizations, earlier to GDPR and everything, we were saying one team, one employee. So we were all, as a structured everything into a single HR database systems or anything.
Right.
But today, it is getting very difficult for all of us, right? So we need to segregate that into a country specific or a region specific or whatever, right? So that's a biggest challenge what we have, because that means your entire system has to be rethinked in it, right?
Right.
So can I use, for example, just to take example, HR workdays in a particular country? Should we use Zoho in a country? Should we use X in a country? It gets very difficult for now, actually. How do we segregate all these things into a different countries, different databases? So that is one. Second one is the data collections, right? Data processing. Today, everybody knows AI is using almost every
Right.
data what we are running today, right? So even last week we were discussing, so next 2 years, people may not be able to find the difference between a real data and a AI data, because we are going to go and generate so much of synthetic data for us,
Right.
which will be like 2 or 3 times powerful than what we have, right? So the second problem, what as a technology we bring it up itself is a problem. Because of that, we do not know what is the personal data protection. Are we protecting a synthetic personal data, or we are protecting our own personal data itself is getting into a little bit of challenge. So we need to define or educate the organizations to define what is your data privacy. What should we collect? What should we not collect? What should we encrypt? What should we not encrypt, right? The last is the processing or the reporting of these data, right? Most of the times, for example, a lot of people gets their corporate mobile phones, right? But that phones is being integrated with our personal data, because you will not get a phone without your personal data.
Right.
So that means what can be exposed, what can be shared, right? So then it is all integrated in one-on-one.
So what you are saying is it's going to be more challenging, with all this new and emerging technologies like
the CISOs
AI
and
and
CIOs are going to have much more tougher times, because the increase of data volumes and increase of data patterns with us. So we need to, first is like, I think in the earlier stages when security came up, we are all running a lot of security trainings. When an employee got onboarded, we are running security trainings. I feel the data privacy training also should be included in such a way so that people understand. At least today there is a lot of gap that doesn't even understand what is the data privacy law.
Right.
Even at the organizations level, it gets very difficult. So my suggestion would be, first let's educate them and say what needs to be collected, what not needs to be collected, what needs to be protected, what needs to be shared. So that training should be given to the entire organization so that they get awareness.
that will always remain the first step to address that challenges, right?
Yes,
Absolutely. Whether it's individual or organization, awareness and educating them in a continuous process is going to be the key.
It's a totally, I agree. And with all this remote and physical and a lot of changes that is also happening, right? Plus, sometimes at least they do a one-time exercise of when they're onboarding, but this has to be refreshed continuously, right? That's a huge problem also we are facing it. I think over a period of time, how we evolved around in all other spaces, I think we'll also evolve around it. Maybe during this course of time, there is a challenge that we might get into certain flaws or things might happen. I think that will help us to learn better and streamline that with the help of our government and with the help of legal teams, what we are going to work it out. I think at least we should mitigate those risks is a very, very important factor, right?
Colonel Singh, I would like to, sure, please.
So I just wanted to tell that GDPR and DPDP are very, very clear about natural person, no synthetic person. So data has to be of a natural person. So just wanted to add.
Yeah, Colonel Singh. If you would like to, take this forward from what Siva said, because lots of, new age technologies coming up, and it's making the, role of all the CIOs and CISOs more challenging. How do you see that, in near future? What are the challenges they would, it would pose to the, the act itself, as well as who are going to implement that act?
So thank you very much, and thank you, VARINDIA, for inviting me here. And I think wonderful points by the panelists. So a couple of points which I'd like to add, and especially when we're going forward with the DPDP Act, the organizations need to really think privacy by design as a whole architecture. We always miss it out. We always talk of security by design, operations by design, but privacy by design as to what is the data to be collected, what is the life cycle of the data which is going to be there. If the data is there, what is the minimal data which requires to be done? And that's what Groupie Parthi also was saying. We've forgotten if an individual is moving out of the company, how long you can hold the data, what data you can hold, how you can use the data. And with the threat landscape increasing, and today we saw that Airtel already lost that 37.5. And they've been blatantly telling over the social media that it's not our data. So who's responsible? So DPDP Act, when it comes as a law, that's what we'll be able to catch the people who are holding our data. This was never possible. And that's what they're playing wrong at. Earlier, this is what was the basis, like anytime you lose the data of a customer, you say, it's not my data. They started it. Even MobiKwik did it. So they've been doing it always. But with the DPDP law, when it comes up, they are responsible for your data, right? And they need to tell that it's been lost. And they have to clearly define what's the loss as, and they need to pay for it, right? And the DPDP will play a major role when it comes to that. Of course, training is going to be a challenge because we have cross-functional organizations which are there. We have different organizational skill sets which are being required. So it's going to take a time. And also, the last point which I want to, before I close, is we have to talk it as a business strategy, the data privacy. It's not just going to be a normal functional strategy. It has to be spoken as a business strategy for the success and failure of the company. And that's how the way forward when we try and implement the Data Privacy Act or the Data Privacy Law 2024. Thank you.
So you spoke about data governance. Khushbu, I would like to ask this to you. How is this act influencing the organizations in terms of data protection or data governance frameworks?
See, much has already been spoken completely over here. If I have to look into the act, it will create a lot of challenge, and I agree the challenge would be there because we were never serious when it comes to data. We were never serious as to how much data are we collecting, whether it was necessary, not necessary. By our own culture, we are an open society, we like sharing. So we share the data in pen drive to everybody and anybody. Today also you go, you look into one of the cars over here and you say you're inclined to buy. Till you reach home, you'll get 20 calls of car loans. So we have been very, very sharing society by nature.
By nature.
Which has to change because till the time it did not create any impact or an issue, it was okay. So coming back to your question, it is going to create a lot of challenge with a lot of things in place. As to AI, when you were talking about, I'm seeing a lot of CISOs are also now inculcating AI as their, in their cybersecurity, and much so you should. But it will have impact right from data entry point to the places you're sharing, but you will have issues when it comes to governance of data which is already available with you. The data which is available with you, let's say anybody from the healthcare industry over here, from the hospital healthcare, what will you do with so much of data which is already available of the patient? How will you take a consent? The consent definition, if you look into GDPR as an explanation, as just a guiding tool, says that you need to take a consent of everybody whose data today you have it. You send them the consent right now. How will you take a consent of somebody? How will you reach them? Do you have details of reaching them?
Right.
If you have it, is it possible for you to practically keep mailing them if they don't respond to that consent of yours? Do you have to delete from your data set? What do you have to do? It's going to be a crazy scenario for all of you. So don't wait for this rules to come up. The act is already enforceable. Start looking into entire data. Do not segregate as law, but do segregate data sets in terms of sensitivity and in terms of this thing. But law doesn't segregate. It talks about any personally identifiable data which is digitally stored in your system is where this act attracts. And the penalties are really very high. And the best part, the liability comes to you. So let's say I've shared with your company, you have shared with 40 more. The liability is yours. Now you have to make sure that you have that joint liability later, or you transfer your liability to any of those 40 entities, or one of them, or all of them. So you will have to have that entire governance framework right now. Actually, I would say as on yesterday, but I would say right now that you need to have, and you need to understand this entire systems in place, limit your exposure, make sure that exposure part, you are in a state to have that much of risk appetite, because your business might not make 100 crores a year, but you might have penalties which can go to 100 crores. So it's going to be a scenario where you'll be out of business before even thinking of running your business smoothly. Second, mistakes of your third party can also make you run out of business. So make sure all your agreements, your things are updated as per the new norms. You understand there also you have your risk exposure done. Limit your risk exposure with your third parties. If not needed, don't share the data. Make sure that they have that much of turnover. If not, then make sure that the third party has a cyber insurance limited to, at least limited to what exposure you're giving it to them, so that is covered. If that is also not coming, make sure you have a third-party cyber insurance so that it makes sure that is there. I don't advocate insurance. I don't get anything out of it. All I'm saying is you need to have this entire ecosystem, this entire governance framework done right away to understand where you stand, so that tomorrow your business doesn't go on a standstill just by one mistake or one complaint that continues happening. Tomorrow, all I have to do is, the day rules come, I will issue, sir, with 1,000 requests of data access. Will you sit manually and start doing it? I'll ask somebody, right to be forgotten, then I'll say, no, it is not done, then I will complain it to the board. Now you showcase your system to the board. Are you in a state today to showcase your system? Do you are aware about, in your department, in your company, if you have 50 departments, which department has how much data, how much third parties are connected to which department, and what all things are there. So this entire mapping has to be done by you really, really thoroughly. That's about it.
So you spoke about some Indian culture. So I would like to ask Arvind, what kind of practices CIO or CDOs should do in their organization to foster a culture of data security and privacy?
I think Khushbu has described this very well just now. So thing is that one is the awareness program. Every CISO has to do awareness program in their organization or to their customers about the PII, or you can say DPDP Act, or any cybersecurity kind of a thing. Secondly, identify the data landscape, what they have and how they are managing. Classification of the data, what kind of a data in their landscape, where it is lying and how it is lying, and what are the, you can say, uses and non-uses kind of a thing is there. Then how they are protecting that particular data, whatever is there in their environment, what are the technologies or tools they have used, and what is the level of security they have deployed it. Log mechanism and the, you can say, auditing of that data, it is being used, how frequently that is being used. Thirdly, then I can say monitoring. So audit and monitoring, those things are pretty much required for any of the CISOs to take care of that. So rest of the things, as far as the technology is concerned, I'm not going that area. But I think if we do that basic hygiene in the organization, we should be able to cater the requirement of the, you can say, governance and the other frameworks as well.
I think this is such an interesting topic and it's so complex. I would take this privilege not to ask more questions rather than open this floor to ask the questions, right? If any of you have any questions to ask on this topic, so we have experts on the stage. We would like to, they'd love to address that. Great. I think 40 minutes was enough for them to understand that. Absolutely. So thank you so much. And I think, sure. Can someone pass the...
At the end of the year, you realize that certain departments are collecting data without informing legal that whether it's right or not. So how to ensure that the whole thing goes organization-wide and everybody understands the importance of collecting what data, what sort of data, and have a proper data governance mechanism. So how to implement that?
So data mapping is very important over here. Data mapping is nothing but entire life cycle of a data. So all entry points, every department has to be sensitized about this. They have to be aware about it. If you want to do it via tools, if you want to do it via Excel sheet, but you will have to make sure that each department fills up or has the system in place where every department puts in 20 categories as to what data Like for example, they take Aadhaar, they take driving license. If it's an insurance company, then there is a policy also with them. If there is a marketing team, they might get access to cookies and other things for their own advertisements. So there can be different departments dealing with different kind of data set. You will have to make them understand what do you mean by data, then what are the data elements out of it. Like Aadhaar will have 5 data elements out of it. They put all those data elements. Then you put in that, okay, how do you keep this data? This is in PNG form, then what is the security level? Do you keep it in-prem or in cloud? Then what all third parties do you share this data with? What all departments internally you share this data with? Because there can be departments who are not directly taking any data from outside, but they must be taking it from department. So this will give you the entire cycle of one data set. Let's say Khushbu's detail who has come to you. You will understand that Khushbu's data has gone to 5 departments, not all 50, and from 5 departments it has reached to 45 third party. So you understand that tomorrow this data revolves all these places. So if a request of data deletion comes, modification comes, access comes, these are the departments we will have to intimate that delete the data by this much time. You will also have to make sure that every department's right, the reason for that data, that it is a legitimate, it is a legal, or it is for marketing purpose, it is for operational purpose. I know what you're saying, but you will have to make sure that this has been given to each department. You will have to have a walkthrough with each department. Either it can be your legal department who does that, either it can be your IT, it can be a combination of legal and IT, it can be an external law firms like us who can be with your departments and who can help you do that. And then you start implementing it. It can be anybody, but somebody has to sit and do this and make sure that this is part of it, either via tools or Excel sheet, because without this, trust me, sir, as much as you say, you do as many trainings possible, you tell we love privacy, if you can't implement this, it's as good as nothing.
And just to extend Khushbu's point, awareness is the key. So you need to go for multiple times of, you can say, training or awareness program within the organization.
No, I'll add. Put the liabilities on them. Make sure first thing you do today is make sure that all your employment contracts have another clause. And that clause talks about privacy, that talks about detailed privacy subclauses, that where you can share data if you're found to share the data, immediate termination, plus penalty, plus this, plus you'll be liable, and so on and so forth. This will make everybody aware, trust me. That's the best way to make people aware.
Basically, you have to have templates for each department, which has to be approved by the top management, what data he can collect. And if he collects beyond that, then he is liable. That's what you... So if you don't set up a template and allow them, they will go berserk and you will have all the problems on your table rather than they having any problem. So templates are to be finalized and maybe with a common meeting point or something, and then approved duly by the top management. Otherwise, it's not possible. Then access also has to be granular. If I have got 10 columns in a data, which column marketing fellow will get, which column the HR fellow will do, which column will be chief executives will access, maybe he will access everything. But those access have to be granular. If you don't bring granularity of the access control, you are losing the game from day one.
I want to add one last thing. Actually, everyone has already spoke about in length. So data governance and responsibility and accountability must be there. It should be a shared responsibility to each and everyone, because IT is only the custodian of data. It's not the owner of data. Second thing is the regular training and awareness. So what you can do, what you cannot do, that is most important. Third thing is data is encrypted. And who is using that data? It depends upon the access and identity. Prove yourself. Who are you? Identity is a very important issue. So until unless you should not identify yourself, what kind of data you are using, what purpose you are using that data, that is the most important thing. And second thing is finally is the how it will impact the other users and other reputation of the company. So most of the things are there, already spoken by my fellow.
I think this is such a complex issue. The whole day would be, short to discuss on about.
Absolutely.
Absolutely right. And at 45 minutes is not going to be enough.
It is not enough.
And we will continue this discussion maybe, next events, next time we meet. And thank you so much everyone for your, key insights, and, we covered almost everything, the awareness, the challenges, and how to, take this forward. Thank you so much for being such a nice panel.